The richest men alive are spending fortunes trying not to die. 4,000 years ago, a king spent everything he had on the same project. He failed, and what he wrote down about that failure is the oldest surviving argument about how to spend a human life. Larry Page co-founded a company called Calico, launched in 2013 with the explicit mission of extending the healthy human lifespan. Jeff Bezos invested in Unity Biotechnology, which targets senescent cells, the biological mechanism through which the body ages. Peter Thiel has put millions into cryonics and life extension research and has said publicly that he considers death a problem to be solved rather than a fact to be accepted. Ray Kurzweil, who works at Google, has predicted that by 2045, artificial intelligence will have advanced to the point where the biological limits of the human body become effectively irrelevant. He calls it the singularity.
These men are not cranks. They are among the most sophisticated, best resourced, most intellectually serious people in the world. And what they are working on with different tools, at different time scales, from different angles, is the same project a Sumerian king undertook on foot, crossing what his people called the waters of death, holding in his hands a plant from the seabed he believed could restore youth. His name was Gilgamesh. He ruled the city of Uruk in what is now southern Iraq, and the poem about his search is the oldest great work of literature we possess.
Consider two cities. The first considers itself the most advanced on Earth. Its inhabitants are extraordinarily productive and extraordinarily wealthy. They have built technologies that transformed global communication, commerce, and information. They believe, with genuine conviction and considerable evidence, that they can solve most of the problems that have defeated human beings throughout history, given enough time and resources. Among those problems, they now include aging and death.
The second considered itself the most advanced on Earth. Its inhabitants were extraordinarily productive and extraordinarily wealthy. They had built technologies, urban planning, hydraulic engineering, long-distance trade networks, and writing itself that transformed communication, commerce, and information. They believed with genuine conviction and considerable evidence that they could solve most of the problems that had defeated human beings throughout history. Among those problems, they produced a poem about the failure to solve aging and death.
The first city is Silicon Valley. The second is Uruk. The parallel is not a rhetorical trick, it is a structural observation. Both are cities at the cutting edge of their civilizational moment. Both are organized around the production and deployment of the most powerful technologies of their era. Both produced cultural artifacts preoccupied with mortality, with the extension of human capacity, and with the desire to make something that lasts.
Yuval Noah Harari, the Israeli historian, makes this observation directly in Homo Deus, A Brief History of Tomorrow, published in 2015. He argues that the primary project of technological modernity, and of Silicon Valley in particular, is the overcoming of biological death, not as a religious promise, not as a mythological trope, as an engineering objective to be achieved through sufficient intelligence, resources, and time. In Harari's reading, Gilgamesh was the first human being to articulate this project clearly, and Silicon Valley is the first civilization to attempt it with the tools to make it plausible.
Which raises the question this entire poem has been waiting 4,000 years to be asked. The epic ends with acceptance. The king returns to his city, climbs his walls, and finds that what he built is enough. That ending presupposes that biological immortality is not available, that it is structurally beyond the reach of any human enterprise. But what if it isn't? What if the Babylonian who gave the epic its final form, working around 1200 BCE, was working with a constraint that our century is in the process of removing?
Before we get to that,
Here is what the parallel means in specific terms, because the claim is not that Americans resemble Gilgamesh in some vague metaphorical sense. The claim is that the specific narrative and psychological structures of the epic are reproduced with striking fidelity in contemporary American culture. Stephen Mitchell, the American poet whose 2004 version reached the widest American audience since Nancy Sanders' 1960 Penguin translation, put it directly in his introduction. Gilgamesh is a mirror in which we can see ourselves. Like him, we live in a culture that denies death, that considers aging a disease to be cured, that believes technology can solve any problem. Like him, we are tormented by the anguish of mortality. Like him, we often choose flight into action rather than confronting our limits.
The homology works point by point. First, the self-made man, the American ideal of the individual who rises through their own effort, who refuses the conditions of their birth, who creates something from nothing. This is Gilgamesh in his opening form, a man of such extraordinary energy that no conventional social structure can contain him. The entrepreneur who disrupts an industry, the athlete who transcends their background, the immigrant who builds an empire from nothing, all share with Gilgamesh the structural characteristic of excess. They exceed the measure of what normal conditions would produce, and they do it through an energy that is itself a response to mortality.
Second, fame as immortality. The American cult of celebrity, the individual whose name outlasts their particular achievements, is precisely the logic Gilgamesh articulates on the third tablet of the epic. If I fall, I will have made my name. The calculation is identical. The risk of death is acceptable if it produces permanent recognition. Every founder who bets the company on a single product, every artist who stakes everything on a work that might fail, every politician who takes a position that might end their career is making Gilgamesh's calculation.
Third, architecture as immortality. American building, the skyscraper, the campus, the museum, the foundation, is explicitly understood in its most self-aware forms as a bid for permanence. Andrew Carnegie did not build libraries because he lacked other things to spend money on. He built them because he understood that the name on the building outlasts the man. The Apple campus, the Gates Foundation, the Bezos Earth Fund, these are the walls of Uruk, physical and institutional structures that say a great person lived here, and this is what they built.
Fourth, the death of the double. In the poem, the king has a companion named Enkidu, a wild man who becomes his closest friend and whose death is the event that sends him searching for eternal life. The pattern is recognizable in American entrepreneurial culture. The partner who dies young, the co-founder lost to illness, the colleague whose death makes the transience of even an extraordinary life suddenly real. Steve Jobs' death from pancreatic cancer at 56, the death of the man who had seemed to embody the principle of transcending limits, had exactly this effect on a generation of Silicon Valley founders. It made death personal. Fifth, the attempt to institutionalize memory as a substitute for biological survival. A Babylonian priest named Sin-Leki-Unini pressed Gilgamesh's story into clay around 1200 BCE so that it would outlast any individual life. Google indexes the world's information. The Internet Archive preserves snapshots of the entire web. Social platforms promise to keep a person's presence available indefinitely. The aspiration is identical across 3,000 years to ensure that the record outlasts the body. Here is the strange part. American culture never encountered this poem directly. It received the Gilgamesh tradition through a chain of transmission spanning 3,000 years, and it received it without knowing that that is what it was receiving. During the Orientalizing period of the 8th and 7th centuries BCE, Gilgameshian narrative structures entered Greek culture through the Hurrian-Anatolian channel, as demonstrated by Walter Burkert of the University of Zurich in his 1992 study, The Orientalizing Revolution, and by Martin West of All Souls College, Oxford, in his 1997 work, The East Face of Helicon. The semi-divine hero, the companion whose death triggers the central action, the journey to the world's extremity, the encounter with the dead, the return home. All of it entered Greek myth and became constitutive of the heroic tradition.
The most important vehicle is Homer. Achilles in the Iliad is structurally Gilgamesh. Two-thirds divine, extraordinary in every way, defined by the refusal of limits, brought to his knees by the death of his closest companion. Patroclus is Enkidu. The rage of Achilles, the unwillingness to bury the body, the mourning that violates every convention, that is the grief of Gilgamesh, transposed into Greek. And the central question of the Iliad, whether a short, glorious life is better than a long, obscure one, is the question of the third tablet. If I fall, I will have made my name. America absorbed the Greco-Roman tradition through centuries of education, literature, and architecture. The founding fathers were schooled in the classical tradition. The architectural vocabulary of American democracy is explicitly Roman, and the heroic ideal running through American mythology, from the Puritans who understood themselves as a new Israel, to the cowboys of the frontier, to the astronauts of the space program, is shaped by the same Homeric inheritance that carries the Gilgamesh imprint.
America does not know it is telling Gilgamesh's story. It thinks it is telling its own, and in a sense it is, because the older story is now so deeply embedded in the structure of the Western heroic narrative that it is no longer distinguishable from it.
So what does the source actually say? The Epic of Gilgamesh, in its final form, does not tell you to pursue immortality. It does not celebrate the search. It records the search with extraordinary sympathy and precision. It shows you why the search is undertaken and gives you a protagonist so compelling that you cannot help wanting him to succeed. Then it hands him the plant of immortality and takes it away. It gives him a conversation with Utanapishti, the one man in the tradition who was granted eternal life, and Utanapishti tells him the truth. Death is structural. The sleeping and the dead look alike. You cannot even stay awake for 6 days and 7 nights. How would you survive forever? The epic's answer is not despair. It is not resignation. It is not a counsel to be passive. It is what Andrew George of SOAS, University of London, whose 2003 critical edition is the definitive scholarly text, calls wisdom through suffering. Gilgamesh becomes wise not through teaching but through experience, grief, a failed search, and the final acceptance that the limits of the human condition are real. And in that acceptance he finds peace. He returns to his city, he looks at the walls, and the walls are enough. Now come back to the challenge from biotechnology. If biological immortality becomes achievable, if aging is reversed, if death becomes optional rather than inevitable, does the epic's argument collapse? Is the wisdom of the walls just a rationalization of failure, obsolete the moment the failure stops being necessary? That deserves a serious answer. The first thing to say is that the biology of aging is now understood at a molecular level that was unimaginable a generation ago. Senolytic drugs, epigenetic reprogramming, cell therapies for age-related disease. This research is genuine, not fantasy. The question is not whether some of it will produce results. It will. The question is whether the indefinite extension of a healthy human lifespan is achievable and what achieving it would actually mean.
The second thing to say is that the poem anticipated this question 4,000 years ago. The plant of immortality exists. Gilgamesh holds it in his hands, and then it is taken from him while he sleeps by a serpent, which slips away and sheds its skin, renewing itself, while the king weeps on the bank. The serpent's renewal is not decoration. In Mesopotamian thought, the serpent is associated with cyclical time, with the natural world's capacity to renew itself by shedding the old and generating the new. The serpent gets the plant because the plant's gift belongs to the order of cyclical renewal, not to the linear project of individual survival.
That distinction is the whole argument. Biological renewal, the kind that actually exists in nature, is not the immortality of the individual, it is the immortality of the pattern, the species, the gene, the line. The serpent does not live forever. It sheds its skin and regenerates. It is renewed by what it loses. This is what the epic says to Silicon Valley. Not that the project is impossible, but that it is worth being precise about what is being pursued. The survival of this specific consciousness, this specific body, this specific accumulation of memories and habits and relationships is a different thing from the renewal of the pattern. Silicon Valley's project is oriented toward the first. Nature has always been oriented toward the second.
Ernest Becker, the American anthropologist, would add something harder. The Immortality project, he argued, is psychologically necessary and psychologically dangerous. The more intensely a culture invests in it, the more anxious it becomes. Denying death produces not peace, but a desperate, escalating need to prove the denial is working. The great achievement, the billion-dollar company, the life extension therapy, the digital archive, does not resolve the anxiety. It manages it temporarily and then generates the need for the next, larger achievement. Which is why the oldest piece of advice in the poem cannot be heard. A tavern keeper at the edge of the world tells Gilgamesh to stop searching, eat, drink, hold the hand of the person you love, and let that be enough. It is not bad advice, it is unlistenable advice, because to stop, even for a moment, is to let the fear underneath become audible.
Jean Bottero, the French Assyriologist who spent his career at the École Pratique des Hautes Études, reading Mesopotamian texts with the precision of a philologist and the breadth of a philosopher, wrote that the epic proposes a kind of Mesopotamian modernity, a view of the human condition that is clear-eyed about mortality without being either consoled by religion or driven by the compulsion to transcend it. The Mesopotamian answer to death is, yes, you will die. Build something worthy of having lived. Write it down. Pass it on. It is the most durable answer in human history, not because it is comfortable, because it is true. And true things have a way of resurfacing even from under the ruins of Nineveh after 2,000 years of silence.
Gilgamesh came back empty-handed. No plant, no eternity, no escape. He came back to his city, climbed the walls, and looked at what he had built. And in that moment, the epic tells you, he found peace. Nobody knows whether Silicon Valley will find the same peace. Nobody knows whether life extension technology will deliver what the singularity promises, or whether it will discover, as every previous civilizational project has discovered, that death is not an engineering problem. Nobody knows what Gilgamesh would say to Larry Page or Elon Musk or Ray Kurzweil. But this much is known. For 4,000 years, every civilization that has seriously asked the question Gilgamesh asked, every culture that has faced mortality without religious consolation has arrived at some version of the same answer. Not, how do I avoid dying, but what do I build that matters? What do I leave behind that is worth having lived for?
The walls of Uruk are still standing, not as walls, as words. This poem survived the fall of Nineveh, the conquest of Babylon, the burning of Assurbanipal's library, 2,000 years of being forgotten, and an English engraver's afternoon at the British Museum. It is the most durable thing civilization has ever produced.
And the message pressed into that clay, hardened by the same fires that destroyed everything around it, is the message every great civilization reaches in the end. The work is the immortality. The work that reaches beyond its maker. The work that serves the people who come after. America is Gilgamesh. It has the energy, the ambition, the refusal of limits, the productive terror of death. It has the walls it is still building, and the story it has not finished writing. The only question, the one the poem has been asking for 4,000 years, is what those walls will be made of, and whether they will be worth climbing.
If you enjoyed this video, hit like and subscribe so you don't miss the next ones. And let me know in the comments what you think. It helps me figure out what to cover next.